Ladies and gentlemen, curtain up, light the lights, drink up, Louise. On this week's On the Rocks, we chat all things contemporary musical theater with Tony Award-winning producer turned Politico. Adam Epstein is here with guest co-host, Broadway World podcaster, and Patti LuPone stalker, Ben Rimalower, and me, your favorite host with the sassy most. Raise a glass and let the drinks begin.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Lord have mercy, buttons and bows and pantyhose. On the Rocks podcast, a place where we're too glam to give a damn. Broadway announced that it was setting tentative dates for reopening it September. The ensemble from Les Miserables better put down those COVID carbs. The barricade's going to need some reinforcing when we all come back. And I'm just talking from personal experience. The barricade that I tried to put up to my refrigerator and I keep climbing over. Can you hear the people eat? Loud chewers are the worst, by the way. On that note, like us on Twitter and Instagram at On The Rocks On Air, and on Facebook, On The Rocks Radio Show. Send me an email. Book me for a wedding, funeral, quinceañera, bris. I don't care. I will show up. Info at ontherocksradioshow.com. The show is presented by Straw Hut Media. You can watch and or listen to now our over 242 episodes at ontherocksradioshow.com. Hello to our listeners around the nation on every major podcast platform, Facebook Watch, and of course on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV on the Outlet.tv app. So if you say, oh, you know, I don't know where to catch your show, we're everywhere. Share, subscribe, leave a comment, leave your phone number. I'm single. Our presenting sponsor today is FanDaddies.com. Support small businesses and look fabulous with their collection of clacking fans and sassy hats. Perfect for your selfies and going back into public after you've been vaccinated, honey. Kurt, do you have a pun for us today? You're so punny.
I always have a pun for you.
Make it snappy. We got somebody on the East Coast not trying to stay awake.
I just wanted to let you know, never lie to an X-ray technician.
Because they can see right through you?
They can see right
Kurt,
through
that's awful. That's not even, I didn't even think about that one. Oh, and he gives himself some humor.
Of course I do.
Oh, Kurt. Let me welcome my guest co-host for today, one of my favorite East Coasters, Ben Rimalower, best known as the author and star of the long-running solo plays Patty Issues and Bad with Money, as well as from his appearances on the last 3 seasons of The Real Housewives of New York City. I'm obsessed with this fact, by the way, as Countess Luann's cabaret director. That's a job. He's also a frequent contributor to Vulture Out, The Huffington Post, and Time Out New York, with regular columns at Playbill, Broadway World, and Decider. He hosts the Broadway Podcast Network, Broadway World Co-Productions, Ben Rimalower's Broken Records, and Next Year, Some Year. Did you like my bravado? So please welcome Ben Rimalower. Hey, girl.
I thought Kurt was unmuting me. I'm so sorry, Alexander.
He was.
How wonderful it is to be back here with you.
He was going to unmute you, but we figured we could hear your voice from the East Coast. I enjoyed
Drink Up, Louise, by the way.
Drink Up, Louise. I'm gonna star in that version. It's so good to talk with you because I feel, I keep track of you on social media as we do with everybody. But you have been quite busy, my friend, from when I first met you, from promoting your 2 solo shows to everything that you are now up to. You've been hosting kind of this dual podcast during COVID, which podcasting we know is a whole different skill set. You and I have both been on the stage. We've interviewed people. We've obsessed over people. We've done behind-the-scenes theater stuff. But podcasting is a different world. Tell me, what have you learned the most from being a podcaster now? Like, what's new in your tool belt?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think, just to be, it's the same thing you learn in everything, just to be yourself, relax, just to listen and be in the moment. I mean, that's always when good things come out, and if COVID, if anything, has really made me, I just only follow my bliss, I only watch what I feel like watching on TV. I only listen to what I feel like listening to. I only talk to people I feel like talking to. There's some things about COVID I hope never change. And I think that's true with podcasts too. It's like, I feel like I was pursuing a different agenda with it in terms of getting guests and all that before the pandemic. And then it was like, I just want to do what I want to do.
See, I think that's the key to being a good podcaster is like be sincere and do what you're passionate about, because your audience will totally hear that. Your guests will totally hear that. And I agree with you. You know, it's funny, some of the cast recordings I've gone back to that I haven't listened to in years. And then some of my diehard favorites, I'm like, nah, I don't need to listen to that right now. And it's like, what? And you know, some things I hope don't change. Like I hope I don't have to touch anybody when we come out of it, or hug, or fake kiss, or any of that. Like that's out.
Oh, yeah. I guess we're never shaking hands again.
I'm so okay with that. You know, here in LA, we hug and kiss everybody. It's like, no, you have to earn that. But I want to talk about your life. You know, being like this theater-loving queen as a kid, a Patti LuPone and diva devotee. Not only is talking about Broadway your job, but you've met and befriended some of the most amazing personalities from Broadway. You've worked, you know, behind the scenes on some amazing shows. It must be a little surreal to wake up every day, pull out a cast album, and say, "Oh, I know that person." You know, like what is my life? But I want to know how your view of musical theater has changed now that you have been in it and you are in it, as opposed to when you were a kid and just bright-eyed about the great Big Apple.
Oh God, I mean, it's gone so down. I mean, when I was a kid, at the height of my, thank you for this picture of me and Dorinda.
This is one of my favorite pictures. I'm obsessing, by the way. I made it nice.
What I'd be doing here without Dorinda. That's for you, baby. When I was in high school, I loved musicals so much, and they could be terrible musicals. I asked questions later, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw The Goodbye Girl on Broadway twice.
I love that recording, by the way.
Yeah, well, you know, Bernadette, but it's like, you know, whereas now I'm so cranky. I don't fucking like anything. I mean, of the, 5,000 shows I've seen in the last 20 years in New York, I probably liked 4 of them, and 2 of them were Hairspray. I mean, it's like, thank you to our guests. But, so I'm really anti, and I don't know if it's just old age or me just being a cunt, or what can I say that?
You did. It's $10 per curse word, but I'm good for it. Adam, give me your debit card. I'm going to slide that through. But I'm glad you said that, because, and this is what I love about you and listening to you on your podcast, but even being your friend in life, and, our texts that we send to each other every now and then. It's like, being honest is so important, because we're so worried about being correct and saying the right thing. But if you have an opinion, you should be able to say, this is my opinion. And I agree with you. I've started writing movie reviews, and so I'm being told, watch this movie. I haven't liked anything in so long, and my friends are like, you don't like anything. It's like, well, you look at it from a different point of view. You expect more because you see, what can go right.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't know. It's also like, I worry sometimes. I mean, it's one thing to be honest, and part of, I think, what bothers me about like theater press is that there's so much like ass kissing, and it's so boring. Yeah. And I feel like it's like kind of behind the level of sophistication that you get in like, the great articles you can read all over the internet about every TV show, But on the other hand, sometimes I'm like, what am I doing talking shit about, Victoria Clark? I'm trying to work in this industry.
Well, that is dangerous, by the way. Yes.
But, and whatever. I mean, I'm kind of a fan. It's like, I just get on like these tangents, but I think there's a fine line, but, and I also think there's I don't want to just be mean to people, but I want to have an opinion about something. But I do think it's important, the only thing I've been in the mood to watch for the last couple of weeks has been Drag Race, which is funny because I went through the last few months of everybody saying, you have to watch Drag Race UK. And I was like, we just had another season of Drag Race. I'm not in the mood. And then I get in a mood with Drag Race and I binge it. And then it's the only thing I want to watch. So I watched UK and I watched Holland, and now I've been going back and rewatching.
Now Spain is coming up. They're doing Drag Race Suez Canal. It's getting crazy.
But
Suez Canal. Did I say Suarez Canal?
Jesus. I don't even know what my fucking point was. But oh yeah, but there's stuff they're saying back in the early seasons. Tranny this and she-male that, and fat shaming her, and doing a stereotypical like Asian accent and all this stuff. And at the time, I remember being like, get over yourself, and now I do think we should be sensitive to those things. And I think, I think that all the stuff that's come out in the way that we've evolved is for the better, even if there's some ways that the pendulum ultimately goes too far before it swings back. I think that's a good thing.
It's like 10 steps forward, 10 steps forward, 7 steps back. You're still 3 steps forward. And I agree with you. I'm not part of the sensationalist, like, we have to post certain things on our social media because we're told that we have to, or, and I do think that it can go overboard. But I have, like yourself, become very sensitive, or more sensitive, I guess. Am I changing my comedy style? No. But am I being more in tune to it? Definitely. And some things just are not funny anymore.
Totally. Well, that's always the bottom line, right? I mean, it's like if something's really genuinely funny, it might not be appropriate, but like it's either funny or it isn't. But I think especially on Drag Race, it's funny you say that, because there's so many times where I'm like, wow, I thought I was being funny, and it's like, yeah, if you were funny, I would have laughed. You were not funny, and you were offensive. You
need to be a judge on Drag Race Broadway, like Broadway stars. Like you need to be a judge. I would totally love that. By the way, Ben, Max Miller in our chat room says, "Hey, Ben."
Hi, Max Miller.
Okay, just real fast before we bring on.
I know that Max Miller you mean. I love him. He's an actor. He's so hot. I've known him for years, since when he lived in New York. But my best friend's kid is named Max Miller. And like his birthday is this coming week. I literally just had finished ordering the present on Amazon, like right before I was literally like, my most recent email before the calendar alert for this was an Amazon package to Max Miller sitting through me.
You're like, oh my God, my computer really does know me. Okay, just real fast before we bring on Mr. Adam Epstein. I have to talk about Housewives. Seeing you pop up on Housewives, for those that know, I have interviewed so many Bravo celebrities because I'm obsessed with all things Housewives. Housewives of downtown LA, I will watch it. Like, I am obsessed. To see you in that franchise was so weird for me, because it's like, we have this like... we have BroadwayWorld's Ben Rimalower and on New York Housewives, and then doing Cabaret with the Countess at 54 Below. It was like some surreal sitcom that somebody had written and cast that I would be like, that would never happen. And it has happened. You're such a joy to watch on the show. And how you make Luann feel comfortable and confident on stage. I mean, that's just a total gift. You bring such joy to that whole Cabaret storyline. But I have to know, did you have any trepidation about, do I want to be on this franchise when I'm a Broadway personality?
Oh, fuck no. Are you kidding?
That's $20 now.
Down to get one more episode.
I absolutely love it. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are talking all things contemporary musical theater with our guest, Mr. Adam, the Tony Award-winning producer, by the way, after this message from our sponsor when we come back. This is Alexander from On the Rocks, where celebrities and cocktails mix, here to chat about fandaddies.com. High fives and good vibes is your go-to site to get the hottest accessory for 2021. Yes, the fabulous clacking fan with designs that are totally fetch. And you may think that fetch can't happen, but it totally can. They call me Fetch Betch. Now here are the top uses for your Fandaddies fan. To look fabulous. You can spill the tea and tell secrets, but fancy-like. It is also the perfect punctuation for reclaiming your time. I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
I'm speaking.
I have to
I'm
weigh
speaking.
in.
And it can also cover that vodka breath. Oh, it's mouthwash, I swear. And last but not least, it makes you look fabulous. So fabulous, you have to say it twice. So go to fandaddies.com and get the fan for that best suits your image. Until we can clack our way through festivals, prides, and events, it's a perfect accessory to spruce up your Instagram selfies or send as a gift. So extra. Support small businesses at fandaddies.com. All right, here's my Fandaddies. I am sweating like a storm in here. Okay, so we are going to talk about contemporary musical theater after the success of Playhouse Live's production of You I Like, a musical celebration of Jerry Herman, which, as you might recall, we had the cast on. We had such a fun conversation. Musical theaters still have more to enjoy and experience courtesy of Pasadena Playhouse. Playhouse Live continues its educational programming with the Contemporary Broadway Musical, a 9-week seminar taught by our guest, Broadway producer Adam Epstein, examining the evolution of the American musical from Evita in 1979 to Hamilton. And the online class centers around how the form has changed since the so-called Golden Age, and what directions musicals have taken since then, and what it means to be an American musical. So let's take a look at this trailer. See what it's all about.
I'm Adam Epstein, and I'm thrilled to be back at the Pasadena Playhouse teaching another fabulous class on the history of the American musical. This time, it's the contemporary musical. We're going to begin at Evita in 1979 and go all the way to Dear Evan Hansen in Hamilton, taking you through the theater on Broadway of the past 3 decades. Join me for another exciting, invigorating, thrilling look at why we love the musical and what makes it American. You can find me on Playhouse Live. See you there.
And we're going to talk about some of the reality of what's happening. This is not just going to be like, we love Broadway. We're going to really talk about Broadway, current and from past. Adam Epstein's theatrical productions have received 46 Tony nominations, garnered 12 Tony Awards, one of which Adam received himself as a producer of Hairspray in 2003. His other credits include A View from a Bridge, The Crucible, Amadeus, The Wedding Singer, and Crybaby. In the West End, both his productions of Amadeus and Hairspray earned multiple Olivier nominations, and Hairspray was awarded a record 11 nominations, winning 4, including Best Musical. He's an adjunct faculty member of NYU, which is also his alma mater, by the way. He's also been a guest lecturer at Harvard, Columbia, and the University of Miami. He recently graduated with his master's degree in American Studies from Brown University, and he's currently working in political journalism and media. He even spent some time with our friends at Fox. Friends at Fox. Okay, please welcome Adam Epstein.
All right, thank you, Alexander. Thank you for that introduction. Ben, how are you?
I'm so happy to see you, Adam.
I'm so happy to see you. Ben and I are old friends. Alexander, where'd you pull that photo of me holding my Tony in my apartment? Now that is archival research, you know? I'm never going to search for a research assistant again. You can't be it, but you could be. I mean, what you did.
I found out some stuff, Mr. Adam.
Oh, I'm sure you did. Keep it quiet. Keep it quiet.
We interviewed some of those chorus people.
Oh, PG. Shh.
So I want to know, but so you and Ben know each other, by the way.
Do.
Tell me how you guys know each other.
We have a mutual friend. Shout out to Michael Weiner for great composer of First Date and many other exciting musical projects, musical and otherwise. And he introduced me to Ben. I want to say, Ben, it was probably shortly after Hairspray opened, 2002, 3, 4.
It might have been when I was working at the Pasadena Playhouse, actually.
But I didn't have much of a arrangement with them then. I mean, maybe. I used to come to LA a lot.
In LA and hanging out with them.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in New York for 16 years. So, because I went to NYU 4 years, and I went right into producing. I was an intern at Johnson Lift Casting, and then I got a job with the late, great Marty Richards, the producer of the original Sweeney Todd, and Will Rogers Follies, La Cage, and all that. But by 2004... So this was in the period of my time living in New York. I began to commute to LA because I was doing so much work with the studios about, developing musicals, and everything was based on a movie. Many of them didn't see the light of day, but it was a great, exciting, ripe time, I think, to be going back and forth. And then I eventually moved here. So my point is, Ben, I think in that time when I would be here literally every 6 to 8 weeks, we probably coalesced.
Well, it's funny.
Or maybe it was in New York.
Might have been.
Well, and you look at the theater world in LA and New York. You also look at the film on-screen world in LA, New York. It's really a small circle. We tend to think it's this huge industry, but you run into the same kind of people.
You do.
You will meet somebody at a party. That's why you do not burn bridges.
The same kind of people? Do you mean gay men?
I'm not gay. How dare you?
For the record, I don't think we should ever out ourselves, but I consider myself fluid.
Fluid? Girl, I'm fluid after this drink right here. So I have to know, Adam, were you this musical theater nerd as a kid? Did you have like the cast recordings in your Walkman?
Yep.
So that was you. You had the
I went
posters
and
on your
saw
wall.
There were two pivotal things. My godfather, my late godfather, was a guy named Charlie Cinnamon. He was very well known.
A PR
PR
person
man.
in his.
And he was responsible for all of the South Florida PR. For all the tours for years. Coconut Grove Playhouse in its heyday. You know, he died, he was 96 only a few years ago. And he did, you know, the Jackie Leeson Theater, Parker Playhouse, when the Broward Center. So I grew up with him, and he was the reason my parents got married. And so he was taking me to the theater at a young age. He took me to see Sandy Duncan in Peter Pan, The Road Company. George Rose did Hook on Broadway, but I saw Christopher Hewitt, who later was Mr. Belvedere. And in those days, and there's a clip of it, there was not, you know, we guys were talking about PC. There was no PC technology. She flew across that theater, you know, and you're 5 years old. And of course, I recognize, you know, the Julie Stein, Comden and Green Essence. You realize this was a great musical, a classic show. And she was so indelible in that part. And it left an imprint on me. And I would go to see all the touring shows. You know, I'm born in 1974, so I was able to see Dreamgirls on the Road, Annie, whatever, you know, Tyne-Daly and Gypsy. Some things tried out down there then. Yep. And it was very, very impactful. And yes, and then I was a musical theater nerd. I was a musical theater performer in high school. I was that kid. Absolutely.
What kind of roles were you doing? Because you also did like acting camp, but like in school, like what kind of?
Oh my God! Well, I was the Lion and the Wiz. Speaking politically incorrect.
That's a great song.
Best song.
Right.
Yeah,
that
is the best song.
I mean, we had a really great arts department. We had full orchestra and full set. Like, it was fabulous. I also went to French Woods for a summer. I didn't like sleepaway camp because I had done that as a kid and was sort of traumatized by it. So I didn't like French Woods is great, but I don't like going and sleeping in a cabin. I'm too much of a prince.
Oh my God. My mom had to drive like 5 hours to pick me up half during the week from camp because I just couldn't.
I was supposed to go to French Woods for 6 weeks, and it was 3 week sessions, and I called my parents. And by that point, I was 14. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, guys. At 8, 9, I know I have to stay the 8 weeks, but I did. You know, want to hear a great thing? I was Baloo the Bear in the Jungle Book at 8 years old at Camp Akiba, Jewish camp in the Poconos. The director of the show was the great Tony Award winner Gregory Jabara, who was at Juilliard then. And had a side job, and he was the greatest guy. And I remember just being like, he was a wonderful director and teacher. So years later, he appeared in the ensemble of the Jack O'Brien, Rob Marshall Damn Yankees, that amazing, joyous 1994 revival. And he was in. I said, I gotta go. You know, I gotta be like that creep and go to the stage tour. I mean, he was so welcoming, and I absolutely remember you.
So great.
Yeah, and of course, then he won a Tony for Billy Ellie, and he has a great career. And I believe he was originally married to Rebecca Luker, who sadly passed before. Is that right, Ben?
That's correct.
Anyway, Greg was a great guy, but he was like, so I had these weird sort of, I guess fortuitous, maybe is a better word, influences early on. And it was like, you know, I did everything young, and it was, people always ask how I did it. I have no idea. There were like sort of doors just flew open, and I seized them. That's why I was doing it young until I didn't want to do it anymore.
Well, we're definitely going to talk about that. And one of the questions I did get was, how did he start doing that at such a young age?
Yeah.
I mean, you were one of the youngest producers.
I was then, yeah. At the time of Hairspray winning the Tony, and I only know this because friends of mine called the theater wing on my behalf to be like, hey, Hal Prince had been the youngest Tony winner. He was the youngest Tony winner for producing the Pajama Game. At that time, before now, we've got what Mel Brooks called the phalanx of Jews. You have 45 investors and 80 investors above the title. One of the things I hated about working on Broadway, and they all hold that I won 6 Tony Awards. They didn't do anything. They invested. Let's call it out. I'm glad you guys gave your money, but I'll tell you straight out, you're not a producer. You're an investor.
Yes, baby.
Absolutely, because I was a creative kid who grew up, and I was a person of the theater. And you know what? I'm not an investment banker. I'm not a dentist. But you have to be a producer. Go fuck yourself.
And you know, it's kind of that.
I'm sorry, right?
But I'm so happy you said that, Adam.
Well, I can speak as an artist. That's kind of why I left, because I wanted to forge my own identity, because I was tired of feeling like I was on the board of a bank. I mean, you know, I didn't go into the theater to do that. And a lot of that has to do with the economics of the theater and the culture of the theater and what has gone on. And Ben, you were talking about it, you know, the disappointment in the art form. You know, the art form we grew up with, I think, is not the same. But I think that's largely attributable to, it's a chicken egg thing. You know, you're asking people for money, and they're like, well, what movie was that? Or who was it? You know, if that's how you're going to produce, that's the material you're going to see.
But it seems to me that the culture has changed, because we knew back then who should be on stage, what a producer actually was. We knew that investors signed the check, and that was
There
it.
were always investors. They're angels for
right, but
David
they might come
Merrick
to watch a
and
rehearsal
David
and all that.
And by the way, I worked with some very close angels, and and I know it's going to come off as controversial, but I'm going to stand by what I said. You know, there were angels for a reason, because they saved the show, but there was something about, and of course it was a different era.
That's
David Merrick presents. Hal Prince was a great producer. He didn't have to attend to all of the needs of the investor. It's like having a second cast. Of course, I'm empowered as a producer to make you, Ben, as an artist, comfortable. And you were going to want to collaborate with me because, you know, A, I'm going to protect you. And number two, I know what the hell I'm talking about. You know, these guys come in, you know, and it's like, hey, you know, Ben, you should cut that number. They used to do, I'm like, oh my God. And it would all fall on me or my partners at the time. And it was like, I don't want to have to worry about, you know, Harold Schwartz from the Westchester Country Club. I'm serious, you know, I just don't care about
like,
what he has to say.
Put in another ballad, sing a ballad.
By the way, part of me wants to say, and I'm not working there now, and I may come back, don't give me your money. How about that? Someone should say, we will find it elsewhere. I don't know how that works. Just don't give me your money. I don't want to be hostage to you.
Because
I'm not trying to make this whole interview about a rant.
No, but it does affect the integrity of what we're seeing on stage. And I think that's why modern, like contemporary Broadway hasn't impressed me much, because it's lacking something. I think the integrity has been sacrificed for ticket sales, for investors, and we're missing the point of how theater started. But I want to know.
But the flip side, can I just say the flip side to that now is that the other route things come up is through the nonprofit world.
That's right.
And then they have too much integrity.
That's
then
right.
There's nobody worrying about the audience, you know.
Right, and they develop shows that oftentimes are lovely and intelligent, but that you're right, they can't reach critical mass.
They're museum pieces. They're not entertainment.
Right.
You know? And there should be room for everything, you know, and it's weird to criticize things for being commercial in a sense, because
by the way, that's such bullshit. I'm teaching what's commercial.
You know?
You know what? The Broadway musical was the great populist middle class medium for the 20th century. What's commercial? Everything everybody likes is commercial. It's such a I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying I hate when people say, "Oh, it's so too commercial."
And think you know before people know.
By the way, My Fair Lady, everybody yearns for the golden age. Well, I got news for all those people. My Fair Lady, the 9 Rodgers and Hammerstein shows, you go through Cabaret Fiddler, they were commercial. Okay. That was what they were. That doesn't mean they weren't art. Those things are not necessary.
Mostly adaptations from previously.
They were all based.
I'm going to say, in terms of what I consider commercial, is that it's so overblown, it's so without substance. You're talking about shows that were commercial, that people were going to see them, but they were good shows. But lately, we have all these bloated shows on Broadway that's 100%. Like, you know, sell tickets, sell tickets.
Can I insert
it's like, well, what are you putting on stage?
I want to make a distinction, because I think the word gets used incorrectly. And Ben, tell me if you agree with this. It's not that these current shows or the shows that feel commercial are commercial. They're cynical. There's a difference. The enterprise, it's a cynical enterprise to say, and I'm not going to sit here pick on shows. I'm going to take blah, blah, blah and do this because it's going to make money. I will tell you, and you've probably heard this from any artist. Ben, you've probably heard it. I'm sure you've heard it in developing. When we did Hairspray, Margot Lyon, the late great Margot Lyon, who died this year, you know, and mentored me, said, I have this idea. I was the first person she teamed with. She was mentoring me, and I became her partner. And I'd produced already prior to that. I just went with it. It just was something, I was like, oh, the John Waters Hairspray. I didn't even love the movie as a kid, but I saw it as a musical. And people all along the way, they rewrite history. Well, Harvey Fierstein in a dress, it should be off Broadway. John Waters. And I used to say, don't do it. I used to say to them, so don't invest in it. Leave me the hell alone. You know, nobody, you know, I obviously was able to, because we had a team who believed in it. It was not a cynical enterprise, you know, and for at the risk of sounding cliched, it was made with love. And that's the difference. It was made with sincerity. That's why Ben saw it 40,000 times. And that's why, by the way, even though I produced it, even though I produced it, was the original producers, and I'll say this, it still remains one of the great musical comedies of all time, certainly of the last 30 years. And that's just true.
Well, it's funny. Hairspray was the first, you know, I'm like a Sweeney Todd and a Carousel.
I love
theater
those.
person.
They're brilliant.
That's so Hairspray was the only first new musical that I actually enjoyed listening. I was like, you know what? This is a new musical. I mean, I couldn't get into Rent because it was in everybody's face. Right. But this was like, oh, it was such a good mix of what I was used to, but it was fresh and it was funny and it was a good show. But it was the first new, quote unquote, new musical that I responded to.
As Ben Brantley wrote in his original review, Hairspray recreates the pleasures of the old-fashioned musical without ever seeming old-fashioned.
Yeah, there you go. That's why Ben is Ben. Okay, I want to talk about your study musical theater at NYU, though. I want to know what classes you were good at and what classes you absolutely hated.
Well, I was only in the musical theater program for the first year. I transferred into political science. Yeah. You know what? What classes? I didn't hate any of them. I mean, actually, I hated music theory because I sang on music. I didn't find the technical aspect of that. It was a very dry kind of. The teachers were just very dry, and they wanted all these musical theater musical theater students to be musical opera majors and be musicians. And that wasn't what I did, you know? And I was like, hey, many of the greats, and I wasn't certainly not that, but many of the greats, you know, Paul McCartney didn't read music. The Holland Dozier Holland team of Motown, they just wrote these songs. You don't have to read music, though it's important. Yeah. I didn't like those classes. The musical theater performance workshop classes were amazing. I mean, they helped me grow. Yeah. And they challenged me, and they were wonderful. And I mean, NYU years were wonderful. And then I got into a very serious political philosophy program, which was life-changing. And that set the groundwork, believe it or not, for what wouldn't happen until years later when I wanted to go to graduate school and then work in politics, because it had the impact that those professors had on me was so impactful. So there was nothing really in the theater program that I disliked. You know, I loved the people I was with. It was fun, but I was intellectually unfulfilled.
So is that why you switched to politics at NYU? Because
I didn't want to be an actor, I realized. You sort of think you do and you get there. And it wasn't the kind of thing where I'm like, I'm going to go out and bust tables, which is fantastic, and I'm going to kill myself and try to make... This just wasn't what I wanted to do. And no surprise, I became a producer because I was like, well... I need to have my own viewpoint. I'm super controlling. I want to call the shot.
It's still single, God.
Yeah, well, for now.
I wonder why. No, I'm kidding.
A lot of guys like controlling men. Anyway, so...
That's a different show.
That's a different show. But anyway, we're not going to leave it at that. But no, I mean, I had a strong point of view. You know, I was an alpha personality, and I was like, one thing I didn't like, I remember, is like in the class, there were like, you know, program directors, and they would like tell you what to do. And I'm just like, you're wrong. That direction stinks. And I just thought it was wrong.
But moving to politics, why politics? Why not a different business management or something?
Because I never wanted to be in business. I still don't. That's why I soured on producing it, because it felt like I had to become a CFO, for lack of a better word. I never wanted to be a businessman. I still don't. I loved ideas. I loved art. I loved the way culture and politics interrelate. And that was what always animated my soul. That's what always spoke to me. My political awakening was actually the 1988 presidential election, the Bush v. Dukakis election. Yeah. Such a different time. Yeah. But my first vote was 92, Bill Clinton. I mean, he was the hero. I mean, he ended 12 years of Republican rule. It was legendary. So I'm a little defensive sometimes now when the new young generation are like, well, Bill Clinton. It was like, guys, nobody was going to beat George H.W. Bush, but Governor Bill Clinton of Arkansas. It was a totally different time. Am I happy with some of the things that were done? Of course not. But it was a different time. Things were of a product of their time. And
it's so crazy. I went back and I watched the Democratic debate from 1988.
Oh, right.
It's mind-blowing. It's him, and it's Al Gore, and it's Joe Biden.
Yep.
And Gary Hart.
Gary Hart should have been the nominee, but in those days, you know, he got caught with having an affair with Donna Rice, I think her name was, on the monkey business.
Say Donna Shalala.
I almost said Donna Reed. Which is where I'm from. And in those
I was tiny, but I remember.
Well, and the Miami Herald, their chief reporters uncovered this affair. In those days, that torpedoed your chances. Gary Hart was this handsome, brilliant liberal from Colorado, which was a very red state then, and he might have beaten Bush. But Mike Dukakis, who I really think is a great guy, and actually was my friend's professor at Northeastern, he just wasn't gonna. You know, it was the '80s. It was right wing. You know, different time.
Okay, I want to talk about being this theater kid. And then I want to talk about opening night, your very first Tony Awards that you attended. That must have been something, walking through those doors, coming from, you know, this kid
coming from the playground.
There. Yeah.
From the playground. It was something. I mean, you know, the proudest thing I did beside Hairspray, and I love all my children, I really do, was my Amadeus revival. And early on in my career, I was introduced through a press agent to someone who became a very important person, friend in my life and colleague, an American who lived in the West End, a producer named Kim Poster. She's been very successful over there. And she had the idea of bringing Amadeus back. And so when I met her, I was very inspired by her. And I loved that piece. And I really wanted to... If you look at the early stage of my life, I'm very, you know, my major at NYU was political science and was an English minor. And I've always been like a literature, kind of an English major at heart. My American Studies degree, which deals with everything American, I focused tremendously on American literature and all that. So I really wanted to produce plays, and I still do, and maybe even direct them. I'm very attached to text and the classics and modern plays.
Crucible is one of my favorite
and that was a
plays.
great experience too. But at this time I was like, well, listen, Peter Hall, who directed the original, the legendary Peter Hall was going to direct it. Peter Schaffer was there. They were still alive.
Wow.
I was going to be able to produce it in London and Broadway at 24. Believe it or not, it was more of a critic of a kind of artistic success. It didn't get the reviews we wanted. Great in LA and London. We did okay on Broadway. We got Tony nominated, which was an honor, but it didn't become the smash again that it was originally. It just was timing. The truth is, it was a brilliant production. The great David Suchet played Salieri, and the then unknown Michael Sheen was Mozart.
Oh God, he's so good.
Yeah.
And you have this dichotomy with your career. I mean, you have for like Crybaby and Wedding Singer and Hairspray, you have the Crucible View from the Bridge.
Yes,
it's like kind of the duality in your life. It's like, yeah, musical theater's in my life, but it's also political, which we know these shows are definitely political.
They're political.
It's such a statement.
I don't think I thought about it that way then, but you realize that everything you learn and know informs your work when you don't know it. Don't you agree, Ben? I think back and I go, of course I did the Crucible. I mean, I've been by the way, we're talking about an offset, a McCarthyite moment, left and right now. We're in a McCarthyite moment. I tell everybody, be careful, but I'm with you. The pendulum, look, we need to get away from the wretchedness of our society and the repression of it and the racism and the hatred that's so endemic to American life. But the pendulum can swing too far. Yes. And we are human beings, and we're fallible. We are imperfect deeply, and like whatever happened to redemption and forgiveness? I mean, you know what I mean? You have to weigh things. Not everything is a mass murder. I mean,
that's totally
I'm
right.
not going to necessarily break it down, and I'm not saying, listen, cancel culture is accountability culture. Political correctness made people not call people faggots in the schoolyard. Let's call it for that. Not use the N-word, not be bigots openly, which is what Trump unleashed and vomited up. And you see how much however, we still have to be concerned about illiberal ideas and censoring speech and censoring art. It's a struggle, it's a balance, and I've thought a lot about this. Anyway.
You know how we went to one side, what would the benefit I got, because it was like a witch hunt, no matter what, like you said, no matter what side
like the
you
Crucible.
were on, like the Crucible. I got attacked for BLM, not blacking out my Instagram immediately on the day and then posting the wrong hashtag that I wasn't, I was supposed to know automatically.
Oh, you mean the black square? You mean?
Yeah, and it's like, well, is that really what you're going to attack me about? And it went so far to that. We had this Instagram account, Gays Over COVID, that was attacking everybody.
What does that mean, Gays Over COVID?
They were attacking people that were going like Puerto Vallarta and that were like in the medical field, and they were seeing partying, which I get.
Yes.
And people were losing their jobs, but then it started to say, should we go after white influencers? And I'm like,
what?
Wait, but people have jobs. Whether what you agree with that job, it's still a job. Right. Why are you going to go after this industry?
Right.
And then it's like, well, after influencer, is it podcast influencers? Like, where does it end? But there does come a time that people step over the line, and that you do have to.
Oh, I mean, listen. I mean, you have people that come out and say, extraordinarily horrible things, and they should be but here's the thing, they should be punished and do whatever, but there is room for redemption. It depends on what they've said. But then there's that gray area, right, where you say something and you're not sure what you said, and I'm not going to mention anything because I don't want to get in hot water, but you're like, does that really require this response? The Twitter mob is a mob. And I'm on it. And Ben, we're on it. Listen, it's a mob. And you know what? They are their own cultural force. Do I agree with them a lot? Sure. Do I think that some of the ways they've operated is nefarious and actually harmful to democracy? I do. I'm balanced, though.
That's the thing about social media. It's so dangerous because, what do they say? Like, I mean, this was in a different context, but it's like a lie can spread around the world before truth.
It's so true.
Totally.
Yep.
But it's also, with these things where it's like, if you substitute lie and truth for good intentions and bad intentions, and I can be part of the mob too. There's people I do want to cancel.
Of
and
course.
Maybe I'm wrong about some of them.
There's people I have canceled.
By the way, and I'm with you. That's just to be clear. It's such a nuance. What I'm saying is, I want to do that too.
Nuance is the key word. And the thing I keep reminding myself. I was telling Alexander because I've been rewatching Drag Race, and I just fucking hate Fifi O'Hara so much.
Guys, do you want to hear my?
She was on the show 2 months ago. Ben.
You're gonna cancel. You guys are gonna cancel me, and I don't have a lot of gay cred in a lot of departments, though I'm openly gay for sure. I never seen an episode of Drag Race.
I hadn't, except until 2 years ago when you started.
RuPaul's World, you'll come around, Adam.
I'm not saying I don't want to. I just never have.
I actually fought it because it was so everybody was talking about it, and you're not anybody unless you know these names. So I fought it just for that reason. Just like Hamilton.
You're not pulling my card. Hamilton's great.
Right, but I fought it because the same thing with Rent came out. It's like, if everybody's telling me, jamming it down my throat,
that's
I'm not
true.
I
agree. Book of Mormon, although I ended up loving it, was that I just was heard the greatest musical of 3 centuries, and you're like, whoa. First of all, there weren't musicals 3 centuries ago. Number 2, slow down. Anyway, Ben, what were you saying?
Sorry. Just that I realized there was this urge in me to go on Fifi O'Hara's social media. And
Sorry, can you give me a little back? Who is Fifi O'Hara? Like, what does she represent? Just so I understand.
She was getting the quote-unquote villain edit. Like, she was kind of like the unlikable character that season, and wound up being a second season she was on later, too.
Right.
But I realized I was, like, looking at myself having this urge while I was watching it the other day, and I was like, Jesus Christ, it's a human being. Why am I... Obviously, I'm triggered in some way, and I'm wanting to act out and punish somebody for some bizarre, transference of my childhood trauma.
That's so interesting.
Like TV bitch.
That's interesting.
Well, and there's death threats now are a normal part of being a drag queen. It's like, you're a drag queen on a RuPaul show, and you're getting death threats.
But I mean, it's everywhere. It's anything that you do in the public eye. I mean, I saw one of my favorite pundits, I don't even remember who it was, but got some promotion to a different magazine or something the other day, and it's a big, it's a big step up. And somebody else commented, "Oh, congratulations! You should try this website, Delete Me, because they'll make sure to scrub the internet of any of your personal information before you go to this level of being known and speaking out about stuff." And I was like, wow, they do need to think about that, because we live in this like Flight 93 mentality about everything.
Oh, wow, that's a great analogy.
But being hyper aware, the only benefit I've seen in my personal life is that it has taken certain verbiage that I know, like talking to my friend, that they know I'm joking, but it's still terms that we should just get out of our vocabulary, because it will sneak up in different ways. It'll sneak up in jokes we tell in public. It'll sneak up in ways that we act, because it's just part of our casual conversation.
I think the positive, I mean, listen, cancel culture is a cliche term, whatever it is. I think one of the positives of having to like reflect on yourself, be introspective, is very important. And I relate this to my career in a minute, is that, that white, white privilege is real. Of course, I have the benefit of walking in a room and not getting stopped by a cop and all that stuff, and I'm going to relate this in a second. And people used to be like, wow, you made it young. Like, what's your background? And I'm like, if you're looking for some story that I was the kid from the wrong side of the tracks, no, I was privileged. I came from wealth. I came from opportunity, and I used it. Great. Absolutely. I went to great schools, and I went to an Ivy League grad school. Like, I've never been in the position, though I believe I've earned what I've gotten, but it's disingenuous for me to say I had no advantages. So I think it's good for everybody. People get so defensive. I'm like, just admit you have certain advantages. What's the big deal? And you do. And
that's, you use those advantages for good.
But you use them. I have, but I'm saying people get so defensive about people who get attacked. They're like, well, I made it on my own. I'm like, listen, you're part of everything's interdependent. Everybody's energy and life journey trajectories all intersect in weird ways. Our culture intersects with our politics, intersects with everything. And, you just have to be honest, but people like to create an image. So I don't think necessarily this is exactly cancel culture, but the idea that people don't want to be called on anything, sometimes you need to be called on things. Yeah. And that's okay. And you know what? I've been called on things. I'm like, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Or that was shitty. Or I erred. Or I was too brazen, and I apologize. Okay, so let's move on.
But it's because it's exactly what you said, though, Adam, about why, there should be redemption and stuff.
I mean, you got to have some ability. In a
universe where there's redemption, then that's a safe space for us all to be willing to truly look at ourselves and see where we're wrong. But if we live in this Donald Trump universe of, never admit, never apologize.
Correct. Never, Why would we emulate that? Why would we emulate? By the way, look at Kamau Bell, Kamau Bell. He goes, it's not something I would do, but he goes and he sits with neo-Nazis and Ku Klux Klansmen, and he tries to change them. I'm just making a point that he's very open about that. Now, you could say, it's not something I would do. They're left for dead, and this is crap, and I think everything they represent is just so vile we shouldn't even give it a moment. But he does do that and he goes into these towns. You ever watch that? And he just meets these people, and you're just like, oh my God. So to your point, I don't believe, and this is a philosophical thing, in the perfectibility of human nature. I believe you can make things better, but I don't think you'd ever make them perfect. That informs everything I do. You just can't. So even on the politics side, I was not a Bernie Sanders guy because there's people like want perfection. You're not getting the whole world isn't coming to you for free, giving you everything you want. It doesn't work that way. But I'm still a liberal, and I believe the government needs to help people and ameliorate everybody's lives, and we shouldn't be living in a free-for-all society. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and saying sorry, I'm still waiting for Julie Taymor to say sorry for Spider-Man. Will it happen? Who knows? All right, we're going to get back to our conversation.
Sorry, we went off on a tangent.
No, but this is part of the energy that is theater. Right. This is what's happening behind the scenes of theater.
Well, the two of you guys are stimulating the hell out of me. The great Ben Rimalower is here.
I've stimulated a lot of men on this show. All right, so we are going to talk about the contemporary Broadway musical, which is part of your multi-week series through Playhouse Live.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, it was very eye-opening for me because I thought I knew a lot about theater. And in fact, in college, my whole thesis was how American history countered musical theater, like from the Camelot, through all of that.
Countered it or accompanied it?
Accompanied it. Yeah. Like how Oklahoma was at a time that was needed, which you spoke on.
Yes.
But what I love about your presentation, you're just not reciting theater facts like in this year, da-da-da.
It's not a musical theater appreciation class.
That's exactly right.
You know, by the way, you can Google this. How many performances Oklahoma ran? Who I mean, not who cares, but Google it. You want ideas.
But it's also not just discussing general themes. It's from your point of view. And as we've heard from the show, you do have a certain point of view from the way that you were raised, from the school you went to, but also from your politics and your understanding of that. But I want to know how you gear yourself up from a class because I watched the weeks that are available.
Oh, did you watch them?
Yeah.
Oh. I'm joking.
But you sit there and you have your notes there, but you're not reading the bullet points. You're having a conversation with your class, which is digitally, so they're not even there. I want to know how you gear yourself up for this hour of talk because you do get through all the points that you mean to. I don't know how you keep track, but I don't know how you keep that energy up without the actual class giving you back and forth. I mean, you carry... It's a one-man show.
Oh, yeah.
Like 10 minutes before you know you're going to stream, like, how do you gear yourself up?
It's a really good question. So for the background, and this is important, it relates to it. When I ended up going to graduate school, this is how the course came about. Let's back up. Because I was very philosophically minded, politically minded through my career on Broadway, was always a thinking person. And what I mean by that is I happen to hate to read scripts. It's just something that I'm known for. What I mean is I'm an avid reader of novels and reading a script, the whole interior. She walks in. I
break into a sweat because I hate it.
I just don't like it. And I actually have
They're not made to be read.
What's that?
They're not made to be read.
But that's right. And as someone who, by the way, I have directorial ambition, so that's a problem. I need to learn to love to read scripts. That's a separate issue. So anyway, I would come home for a lot of nights from work or whatever, the nights that we weren't, we weren't having a meeting or show, which wasn't that many times. And I would read a book on theater criticism or a book on movie criticism or a book on anything unrelated to theater. So I was always an ideas person, which is why I was so sort of like intellectually frustrated as a producer, which is why I ended up going to grad school. My point in saying this is I had been thinking for a long time about the context of theater. In another life, I would have loved to have been the New York Times drama critic. I've written lots of criticism. I love to opine on it. I love to think about it. I don't know if that's what I ultimately would have wanted to do, but, I remember buying the collection of Frank Rich's reviews when it came out, Hot Seat, which I use in my class. And you had 14 years of the shows that I was a baby, to read that original, Dreamgirls review when Broadway history is being made, you can feel it, the Les Mis review and all the pans. But then you were able to step back as a thinker and go, he was dubbed the Butcher of Broadway, but I didn't disagree with a lot of his reviews. I mean, it was, if you were a producer who produced, Irma La Deuce 2 or something, and famously Bring Back Birdie was the sequel to Bye Bye Birdie, and he headlined it Send Back Birdie. But what I'm saying is it probably intellectual kind of prism for it. I go to grad school. I go get a master's in American Studies at Brown, which is not a political degree. American Studies was originally a combination of English and history departments. It's become the study of ethnicity, culture, queer culture, feminism, American literature. It's very there you go. It's very it was a great moment. I loved everything about it. But a lot of my professors would say, and you, Ben, you'll like this. It'll be like, you should really do something intellectually with the history of musical theater. Very few people do it. And I'm like, yeah. So I started looking into people that would do it. And there isn't anybody who I read. They're not all wrong. They're very dry. They're very academic in the way I can be that too, but I'm not that way when I teach. They're just sort of inaccessibly dry. And they're not practitioners. They haven't been in the trenches. So they were like, you've done it. You should, write about what they call performativity. It's a very pretentious academic word. I mean, no one ever uses that in show business. But, and the point is, and I was there, and I, of course, didn't make that my total focus, but it became something that inspired me. So when I graduated, and I was at a crossroads before I got into political punditry and this whole new career, and was still kind of searching for myself, believe it or not, a new version of myself. Danny Feldman from Pasadena Playhouse said, why don't you do a class? And I had thought so much about Broadway, and I'm answering your question a very long way. I am very good at an impromptu, off-the-cuff discussion of something that I'm saturated in. If you talk to me about things I know, there's plenty I don't, but I'm also a perpetual student. Like, I'm such an avid reader that I don't just read what I know. I'm always fascinated. I'm like, oh, there's a book on particle physics out. I want to read it. That's not my area, but I'm fascinated by it because I just want to learn it. And, sometimes it's a slog. Do I gravitate mainly toward a great book on politics? Of course. So when I teach this class, which I've thought about, I structure it, I create a syllabus, and I think, how am I going to go into it? And so each class is a class I've already thought about, and I've prepared in my head where my notes, like you said, my notes are here, how I'm going to go into it. And I just honestly talk because I'm able to, I guess, have thought about what these shows mean and how they've related and seen them in revival, read the reviews 100 times, knew people in them. So if you say to me, like, talk to me about Evita, it's just like, I'm not like, oh yeah, Patty was great. Okay, good. We know Patty was great. Yes, there's nobody.
Thank you.
Well, there's nothing like the original Hal Prince Evita. Everything else is garbage. But the point is, they are. But the point, well, in my
Sorry,
opinion,
Elena.
I just didn't think that was very. I didn't.
I'm just teasing. She was
fine, but I'm just saying that she was lovely. But I'm saying the original production was amazing.
It was magical, and that's what you actually start this series on. Is that musical.
This particular class, because I go dive into the '80s, and I think there were two interesting things. Evita, which is this huge Andrew Lloyd Webber hit, becomes a kind of precursor to the mega musical without being a mega musical, right? Critically not approved of, as a lot of the mega musicals weren't, winning all the Tonys, like many mega musicals do, and becoming this rock opera that had an album in London with Colm Wilkinson as Shay and Julie Covington, right? Which I remember hearing as a kid, and then Elaine Page opening it in 1978, it running almost 9 years in London. It ran like 4 on Broadway, but it was still a big deal. And then it comes in and it creates this wave. And then, not just because it's David Merritt, Gower Champion dies. He dies in August of 1980, the great showman, the last of the, not the last, but I put him the Champion, Fosse, Prince, Bennett, Toon. He was the first one to go. And what happens within a year and a half, Cats takes over in the British mega musical, which I'm not, by the way, an opponent of. I mean, I love Les Mis and I love Miss. I actually love Phantom. My Cats, I don't like the movie. I don't like it, but there's got some good songs. But my point is, it like threatened the American form, and it changed things. And it was really as far away from Gower Champion staging a Bye Bye Birdie or Hello Dolly or I Do as anything. So you start thinking about, is this, everything sort of happens. Not necessarily because it's planned to happen. What I mean by that is like maybe it's correlation that like Champion dies in the but we end up in the 80s, but for Dreamgirls Lacage, by the end of the decade, City of Angels. But, Sunday in the Park is one of my favorite shows. Wasn't commercially successful. Love Big River. I mean, all those shows, Mystery of Edwin Drood, you don't think about. You think about Les Mis and Phantom. And I mean, we think about them because we love musicals, but they're not iconic in that way until City of Angels, then Crazy for You comes around. And then, the world starts to change. And by the early 2000s with The Producers and Hairspray, voila, musical comedy's back. So I'm sort of charting the way in which, to use our word, the pendulum swang one way. But no one anticipated, but Cameron McIntosh and Andrew Lloyd Webber globalized the theater forever. We expect spectacle, bigness. The road is forever changed. Merchandising is forever changed, which means that when you have a hit musical that's American like Hairspray, you can exploit that. I mean, I like that from a business perspective, they did that. I don't like that everything has to be a bloated behemoth of a show if it isn't a great book musical because, You can smell and put on body odor, but you still smell. Excuse me. You can smell and put on deodorant and still have body odor.
That too is another show.
No, but you know what I mean. It's like put cologne on.
That's one of the Alexander sponsors is the body odor you can buy.
Body, yada, yada.
You can put on.
Yeah. So I encourage everybody to take this class. Go to playhouselive.org, and it really goes
Yeah,
show
you
by
can
show.
binge it. Like I'm
Yes.
6 sessions in of the 10. You can go back. I can't remember what it costs. Like we have so many students, which is great. I think it's like 180 or something. It's not expensive, so it's like $18 a class. Come on, everybody spends much more on that on their tender greens meal. So the point, right?
Yeah.
You looked at me funny. What? No tender greens?
I hate.
I actually don't like tender greens. I was just using it as an example.
Flames shooting.
Anyway, you're right, but nevertheless, you can take it and you'll be able to binge it. What I actually don't know is how long after that. I won't be teaching it again for several months. I assume they'll leave it up, but go binge it. Netflix, learn something. I try to make it fun. I mean, did you think it was fun? You didn't think it was too academic, did you?
Well, no, and I've studied theater because I love it so
Yeah.
much, but the worst thing I hate is when you take the personality of it and the point of view. It's like, okay, we all know the facts, and even the facts are not the most interesting parts of these moments of Broadway history. But you don't have to be a student.
Did you
don't
watch?
have to be
You didn't watch last night's, did you?
No.
So I did. I devoted a whole. So I don't know, Ben, how you feel. Falsettos is one of my all-time favorite shows.
Which is interesting.
All time, and
that's
I love.
not one of the big musicals I think of or appreciate.
That's why I did it, and I said because of what it represented and how it came about and how it was 2 off-Broadway musicals put together. But I did it in the context of the first musical to really put a gay couple without Lacage was not that. I mean, a actual story of family, and it anticipates modern family in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then secondly, what the AIDS crisis meant to the theater. We were in an,
it was affecting everybody behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, a chorus kid in a Broadway show, assuming they're gay, wink, wink, they don't have to think about
Hugh
that.
Jackman.
And then, and that, a generation of performers, artists, so many in design, and were wiped out. And what was it? Michael Bennett. We lost Michael Bennett in 1987. So you think about, what AIDS, what AIDS represented, but what falsettos meant for people who would go into the theater. Imagine seeing it in 1990 when Falsetto Land, the second half of it came.
Yeah.
Apparently people sat in the theater sobbing for 10 minutes.
Right.
They had never seen anything like that. So there's no way to talk about falsettos. You can't just say, well, it was, William Finn pioneered the next to normal genre. Okay, maybe. But the point is, he had something to say. He and Jim Lapine were doing what they knew, and that's all they wrote.
Yeah.
So playhouselive.org, take this series. It's amazing. We are not done yet because I don't want to rehash class by class. What I want to do with you guys is I want to talk about some themes and topics that we might agree on, that might be popular to talk about, which might not be. So when we come back, we're talking themes from contemporary Broadway musicals when we come back. And we're back. Okay, so just to get us a little started. Oh, no, Kurt, not for this episode. That's another episode. Okay, Kurt, so we're going to play a little Truth or Sip. And Ben, I know that you are not a drinker. Wait, not yet, Kurt. Ben, I know that you're not a drinker, so if you do not want to answer the question, you have to sing a line from Luann de Lesseps' Cabaret. All right, so Kurt, take it away as we play...
Truth or Sip on the Rocks with Alexander.
Okay. Truth or Sip, Adam, we're going to go first.
Yep.
Least favorite project you've produced? Truth or Sip?
Oh, gosh. I have to answer that?
Or Sip. So if you don't want to answer it, you have to
you know
sip.
what? I love all my children. Sip.
Mm-hmm. Ben, truth or sing? Least favorite celebrity meeting?
Oh God, I want to just not answer so I can sing, but I would love to tell you. But I don't actually know. I mean, I'm definitely not like some people, but like money can't buy you class.
Okay, got it. Both of you guys. What's the most overrated musical in the last 10 years?
Oh, okay. Ben, go first. I know.
Last 10 years. Oh God, I wish I could. Oh God, I hate it. Kinky Boots.
Okay.
Billy Elliot. So
I'm joking it up.
overrated.
You guys are being honest. Okay, next one.
Yeah.
This is for both of you. Most overrated performer. on Broadway.
Sutton Foster.
You are the only one.
Really?
Are you the only?
I'm not
had this
angry. Really, you
conversation.
don't love Sutton?
She's talented.
She's
but
okay.
She's
She does the job.
queen of Broadway. She's the Ethel Merman of our era, and that's ridiculous.
Ben, I had this conversation on the way over with somebody because I'm like, I wonder if we're going to talk about Sutton Foster. I don't get it. I do not get it.
Oh, see,
I don't get
actually,
it live. I don't get it on screen. She's
I-
okay. She does the job, which everybody should do the job.
Well, originally...
God, Ben, I'm so glad.
Originally, I'm going to give the information here, that was Ben Brantley's thesis from Thoroughly Modern Millie through Little Women. He was always like, she's fine or whatever. But then she won him over with Anything Goes, and subsequently...
That's where I hate her the most.
Yes.
Is Anything
Oh
Goes.
my
well,
God.
because Patty was Reno. So, I mean, she's not Patty LaPone.
But
she is Ethel Merman, and
She's
Ethel
not even
Merman...
Rachel York.
No.
Okay, but Ben...
She's not even Helen Keller.
But Ben, interestingly, you didn't like her in Anything Goes. I did, but let's say you didn't. Ethel Merman was Reno, and she's the Ethel Merman you said. So there you go.
She is no way
I said
Ethel
she's
Merman.
in terms of her career domination.
Oh, okay.
She's everywhere. It's like
Ethel
Sutton
Merman.
Foster. So I just saw her.
Okay, I was
last
wondering
year.
about that. She's not Ethel Merman.
No. God, I need to be clear.
Okay.
Yeah, no. She was
But
just.
she's my
Now
mom.
I'm gonna get canceled.
By the way, she's my Mama Rose in the Gypsy Revival. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. I'm
So I
joking.
want Audra.
Oh.
Eventually, yes. Eventually, not now.
No, not now. Okay, but I saw Sutton at
No,
Hollywood.
You want Mama Rose to be. She's not supposed
I
to
know
be
she's not supposed to.
like
She's
that.
getting
Anyway,
over.
Performer, I don't want to
Okay.
insult actors.
Good. Okay, take a good sip. But I saw Sutton at Hollywood Bowl Into the Woods.
She was great.
Woof. No.
Oh.
God.
How is that into the?
I wanted her never to come out of the woods.
Wow. But by the way, how many are Broadway people listening to this?
Yeah, but we're honest on the show.
You are. I mean, you should be unopinionated like me. I'm joking. All right, go ahead. Sorry, Ben. I love
Okay.
your glasses, Ben. By the way.
Okay, both Bernadette or LaPone.
Who?
Bernadette or LaPone. Truth or
Ooh.
sip. Well, we know, Ben.
Oh God, I love them both.
Can
I honestly love them. I mean, I'm such a Patty fan.
Specific on the question.
Yeah.
Nope.
Bernadette or LaPone in Gypsy.
LaPone. But I can add to that.
That's actually one of these. Yes.
Who I did not see, Angela, but who I did see, Tyne Daly. Oh,
Her
I mean, no, her voice.
I didn't see it, but I
Tyne
listened to it.
Daly
And I
and
was like,
Gypsy is the memory of the theater. Patty was spectacular. I mean, that album, Patty was like out of control great. Like I was crying during her performance. I saw it 3 days. So it's hard. And I
well,
went
that's
to.
because she took your phone out of your hand.
No, I went to Ravinia to see her, Ben. How do you like that?
Me
Because
too. Me
and I
too.
loved her that much. But Tyne Daly was just for a smidge better to me, you know.
You know, we're doing this thing on my podcast right now where we're making a Spotify playlist of different roses doing the different songs.
Yeah.
Where listeners
I
are
love that,
voting
by the way.
on which version of which song they like. And so I'm doing my votes too.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I actually didn't see Tyne, although I usually lie and say that I did because I should have.
There's a lot of YouTube of
You
it.
can listen and YouTube.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's not the same though. Yeah.
Like Imelda.
Tyne's kind of my favorite in a way too.
Wow.
Because Patty and Bernadette and Angela and Ethel and Bet, these are my queens all day long. I'm listening to them while I'm walking down the street, taking the subway, doing the dishes.
Right.
I always have these women singing in my apartment. So
Right.
I don't hear Rose. I hear my favorite diva.
I think that's
You know?
right.
Well, that's very interesting. You
That's
bring
a
that
good,
up.
that's a very good point. I was going to say that I mean, Tyne is such, and they all are. But I mean, but Tyne's really a wonderful actress, and it was a very. But I agree with you. It's a very special performance. Let me add something that's controversial because I felt this way, even though it was the year that Marissa Jarrett Winokur won the Tony, and I wanted her to. I think Bernadette's underrated in the part.
What?
I do. I think she's underrated.
Underrated or underweighted because she was too skinny.
No, in Gypsy, I think, no, she was not viewed as, I mean, I think she's better than she was thought about at that time.
I think people are pretty in love with Bernadette. I mean,
As Mama Rose?
No, I would disagree. I would very disagree. Nobody liked it. I didn't like it.
People didn't like it, Ben.
Maybe people just hate me, and to make me mad, they tell me how Bernadette's their favorite Rose because I hear that all day long.
Well, people say like Bernadette's the best Rose because interestingly, I teach Gypsy in a different class. And I actually went back and read the memoirs, you know. Rose Havoc is actually Bernadette. She's pretty. She's meek. She's not.
I did not know that. I thought she was
she's
like earthy.
Not. They have to understand they wanted Ethel Merman to do it, so all these brass, Mack trucks play it. She's actually sexy and vulnerable in the way Bernadette is, which is why Patty was so great, because she was both relentless and vulnerable at the same time, because she's so good.
Thank you.
The thing I liked about Tyne Daly is that she sounded tired and like earthy, and like she was going from theater to theater. Okay, next, truth or sip. Broadway show you are okay with not reopening after COVID.
Ooh.
It could be any. It could be a long-term running one. Which one should just take its bow and not come
Think
back?
about what I saw. I saw most of the. There are a bunch of new ones I didn't like see. Company or Tina or all those shows. I saw, which I loved. Girl from the North Country was lovely. I saw the first preview.
Did not.
I love that. Not reopen. Ooh.
It could be a long-running one too. Like Phantom, you're done.
No. I don't want it done. I'm going to sip on that. I don't know, because as people, I try not to be vicious about livelihoods. I can still be opinionated about a show, so I'll sip.
Okay. Ben?
I mean, selfishly,
yeah,
I wish that Company weren't happening, because I saw it in London and I loved it. And I would rather Patty was free to do something I haven't already seen her do.
Right.
Okay. So that's our truth or sip. I had a lot more, but that got a little deep. It got a little deep. No, we had more, but okay. Oh. But I want to get to this conversation. It's very funny that we brought that about like which diva was the best, Mama Rose. So I want to talk about divas in general, and you kind of touch on this. The ratio of male divas to female divas, like there's only female divas, which is very interesting. Does that mean that the roles are better for the women, or that the men sound the same and they're a dime a dozen? Here's I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about divas. And Ben, you and I, our friendship was created for our insane love of Patti LuPone. I would write her fan mail so much that she invited me backstage without even knowing me, because I had written so much. I have flown all around the nation to see her. In fact, I flew into New York and flew back out from LA to see her at 54 Below. But, and this is just my opinion, she has become such a diva that, to the point that we brought up earlier, you can't think of her in a role anymore. You're not paying attention to the show. It's Patty. Her scoops and her definitive vocal choices have become so blown because she's this diva that it's so distracting from her storytelling, which is why I fell in love with her for the first time.
Right.
I don't fly to see her anymore. I don't listen to her new stuff because she's become a caricature unto herself.
I understand that.
We saw Bette Midler on Broadway, and she's wink wink, I'm Bette Midler.
Oh, I know.
And Hello Dolly.
Oh. Bernadette as Dolly was everything.
Yeah.
Bette Midler was Bette Midler.
Well, see, that's just it.
Sorry, I mean she was. I mean, I love Bette, but Bette was on Dolly, and Bette's one of my favorite performers of all time.
Of all time.
But she was Bette, and Bernadette was Dolly Gallagher-Levi.
Okay, but so we have the Patty. So our divas becoming so
Ben
diva.
doesn't agree.
There's just a lot flying in different
directions.
directions.
So here's the point I want to make. Are divas becoming so diva-esque that they don't even belong on Broadway anymore because they're becoming caricature on themselves and they're not playing the role and they're hired to be in a Broadway show?
I think you
I'll
have to
give
take
you a different take on that.
Case by case basis.
I think that I wish there was more of that, because unfortunately what we see a lot of today is the sort of bland professionalism of Sutton Foster's, and that's not what made Broadway great.
No.
Ethel Merman and Carol Channing and Zero Mostel, they were these larger than life personalities, and roles like Rose is a real play, but it's also a larger than life musical comedy character. So is Dolly Levi. So is Edna.
Correct.
Turnblad.
I actually agree with you. I want to make a statement,
but it blends into like an Edna Turnblad.
That's a really great point.
It is a great point, but like a really good Edna Turnblad doesn't take us away from the story of what's happening, and it doesn't take away from the other performers on stage.
I don't find that about her in all the roles. I was talking about listening to the album.
Yeah.
Time really just disappears into it more for me to hear the music.
I will say this: you asked me back to my original NYU experience, and this used to drive me crazy. I will say this was the most mediocre department of people I ever saw. Many of them went on to Broadway, and they're still mediocre. So the point is, I mean, let me tell you what they used to say. Okay, I grew up, Ben, like we did, Mandy Patinkin, Michael Rupert, Bernadette Petty, they are all what the Latin word, sui generis, one of a kind, what you're missing now. And I will tell you, going back to 1992, and I'm not a performer, I'm not that, but I am one of a kind as a person. I say I am who I am. The teachers were trying to mute everybody's personality. Like, I would give an interpretation of a song that even my peers were like, that was really good. And they'd be like, no, you can't be that way. And so, but I've heard, maybe you can weigh in on this, is that musical theater schools now they're an industrial factory. It's the triple threat thing. And you see it on Broadway with there's no idiosyncrasy. There's no personality. And it's like, I think they just churn out. This is what I'm told. But I mean, even in my day, it was like, you just have to do this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, but when I just went and saw, and I'm not saying I'm that person, I'm just saying I went and saw Manny Patinkin, you're damn right he was sucking air off the stage. But that's what makes him great. Patti LuPone, Anything Goes, you know what I mean? That's what made Blow Gabriel Blow special. And to your point, I don't want to see bland professionalism. I'd like to see character.
But there's doing the role, and there's not, like, one of my favorite Patti roles was her in Passion, because...
I didn't see that. Passion, the Sondheim show?
Yeah.
I hate that show.
Oh,
yeah.
I love the show to listen to watch it, no. But it was on PBS, and she was part of the storyline. Her performance fit the ensemble, and it was so enjoyable. So I'm not talking about giving a bland performance, but I'm saying when you're so hyper-aware that it takes you out of the point of a musical.
Passion is different than Hello, Dolly.
Oh, yeah.
You know? I mean...
Patti was going to do Dolly.
I wish.
Oh my God!
I saw all the Dollies. I saw Carol when I was a kid, but I saw Bet, I saw Bernadette, I saw Donna, I saw Betty, I saw Carolee Carmelo.
Oh wow! I saw Carolee, Betty on the road. I didn't see Carol. What did you think?
Go see
How was Betty?
And, if that happens. Well, I'll tell you, Betty did exactly what you're asking for, Alexander. Betty truly disappeared into the character. She was, for the first time.
But the character's big, though.
I agree with Ben. Yeah.
She was the protagonist, okay? She gave you what you're asking for, Alexander, because instead of me watching, every other Dolly that I saw, I was like, oh, she's not in this song much, but she has one lyric. I want to see how she does it, Whereas when I was watching Betty and she would talk to Ephraim, I looked behind me, because who the fuck was she talking to? There was somebody goddamn there, it. It was so real, but it didn't work, And when I saw Bet, I wished at the beginning that it was Patti, because Patti would have a more effortless vocal, and Patti would be
yes, Patty's voice is so much more intact than any of them.
Yeah,
by the way, didn't Bet's voice how tired it was? And I saw it early on.
That's the thing. But Patti couldn't do, and Bernadette couldn't do what Bet could do.
The humor.
Bet came down that staircase.
Yes.
And because what is Dolly about? It's about an old lady that goes to a restaurant she hasn't gone to in a long time. And it really only works if she's such a mega star to the audience.
But when you have to
rip their hearts out when she
That's true. By the way, Bet, you have to understand, it's not like I didn't love Bet and every minute of it. And I got, I had... Rudin and Miramontes get me the $300 seat on the aisle. I paid it. First of all, I don't think Hello, Dolly now, I do not consider it a great musical like I thought it was. There's a great song.
When you look back.
No, the material, there's great moments in it, number one. But number two, I mean, the title number and all the numbers she sings. But when she came on, part of it for me was where Bernadette was so spectacular, but still, I believe she was Dolly. I just thought Bet was winking a lot. And I think Bet was just like, I'm Bet and I'm in control. And I love Bet. I mean, I listened to Do You Want to Dance on repeat. And I love The Mermaid. I love the whole Clams and a Half Shell or whatever. I love everything about Bet. But I just wanted, Bet's a musical theater. She's a Broadway baby. And I know she's now such a star. Yes, but I would have loved, and I love every movie. I just would have loved her to have been slightly more subtle. She wouldn't have dimmed her wattage. Does that make sense?
Well, she also had to overcome that they had to drop the keys so low. I mean, it was almost painful. It's like seeing your favorite person hobble up the stairs and you're not able to help them. Like
Bernadette was thinking of doing the role of what I've been told 10 years or 15 years ago, and she probably would have still been in maybe stronger voice, but she moved me so much in it.
I love.
Didn't you love her, Bernadette, when she came down the stairs? It was brilliant.
Yes, look, Adam, Bernadette, in a way, is the perfect compromise between what Betty did and what Bet brought to it,
yes.
But Bet had a level of it that unless it was Liza or Cher or Barbara coming back to the part, and I think that the reason that show worked, not just commercially at the box office, but in the energy in the audience, that experience,
Yes. And Jerry's axe is industrial strength, and the revival was joyous, and I mean, we're picking it apart, but yes.
Well, so let's go on to a next topic, and this is what I wanted to do. Is I wanted to have these kind of conversations because, like we said earlier, we're so PC about this. I love Patty, so I'm playing devil's advocate.
Well, I don't think we're getting canceled whether you like Patty or not. Are we, Ben?
Well, no, because Ben and I share.
But I like Patty. I'm there for you.
But the thing is,
you don't like her enough for me, Adam. I'm sorry.
By the way, 88. I saw Patty do it at Lincoln Center with the whole original cast. It was life-changing. The same trip I saw Les Miserables and Phantom with Michael Crawford, and not in 1987, but the early 88. And it was like I ran out and bought the CD as soon as in New York, I bought it. I'm like, I got to get this CD, and I played it on repeat. I love Patti LuPone. She's also a brilliant actress. We're splitting hairs.
But did she kiss you when you were sitting in front of the stage at 54 Below on your birthday? No,
she did not.
No, but I have to say, what I loved was her storytelling. Yeah. And now because we laugh because she's made fun of that she doesn't enunciate or that she scoops or whatever. Now she's so confident in her diva-esque. She's doing that so much. Okay. It's taking me out of the storytelling. Anyway,
but Alexander, a lot of people were saying that about her before she did Passion, and then she did Passion that you didn't feel that way about.
Right.
So you should be more specific. Did you see her in War Paint? Did you feel that way about War Paint?
I didn't see War Paint. I actually didn't see War Paint.
Okay. Next subject. And like I'm playing devil's.
Hell hath no fury like Ben on Patti LuPone scorned.
Only I can shit on her.
I know it's true.
No, but I want to, like I said, I want to play devil's advocate because we should be having these conversations.
Sure.
We should feel free because it's exciting because now we want to go revisit some of these albums.
This is gay ESPN is what this is.
Okay. Right. Okay. So next thing, so I want to go let's go to a less serious topic.
Okay.
Racial casting.
Okay.
Okay. I'm joking.
Why is that? Are you laughing? I'm joking.
No, because
I'm joking. I'm joking.
We're gonna make it light. No, we're gonna go deeper. I want to talk about casting, stunt casting, and ethnically diverse casting. Okay. The first time I became aware about ethnically diverse casting was in my youth when Audra McDonald was cast and won the Tony for Carrie in Carousel,
which was scintillating,
amazing. Oh. But it was the first time I had ever heard that conversation and that kind of race talk in theater, which it wasn't new. We know from your Instagram you posted about Pearl Bailey as Dolly Levi.
I mean, it's my favorite Dolly recording.
Nell Carter and Annie, which I remember because everybody loved it. Playing roles that were
after Audra.
Yeah.
Nell got a broad deal. She was wonderful.
I mean, and she kind of had this resurgence on the road, which was so great. Playing roles that were most associated with white actors. Then we see Hamilton, and it's like, oh, it's a crapshoot. Like in terms of regards to casting.
Yeah.
We had You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, which we know what these characters look like as comics.
What a bore. Yeah.
But we saw it was
show,
diverse.
Such a boring show.
I'm the biggest Snoopy Peanuts. I did the show for a year at the Roxy.
I'm sorry. I love the Peanuts. I just don't like that show.
The new version. Anyway, but we saw this. We know, but also there's backlash. Like we had Jonathan Pryce in Miss Saigon.
Oh, the best.
Then, but do you remember the pickets and all of that?
I just taught it. Yeah, of course.
Then we have Elena Roger, as we know, who was actually Argentinian, play Eva Perón, and
she was good.
It was stunt casting. She was not good.
I thought she was. I'm saying Patti LuPone, and Ben, this isn't pandering, is Evita. I mean, it is a. You know what it is? Patti LuPone and Evita, and I really swear by this, is the equivalent of nobody can ever restage Chorus Line better than Michael Bennett. So I don't care. I know they change it. They can change it all they want.
Bringing it to Netflix.
Good for him. The point is no one's going to ever restage it better, and I don't think anyone's going to ever be than Patty. That's the thing.
But here's the thing. So Elena Roger was stunt casting because it's like she's Argentinian and she's playing an Argentinian. Of course, Juan Perón was Michael, who is the whitest person on Broadway.
Yeah.
And
Michael who?
Severus?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So I want to talk about all of this talk about, racial casting, stunt casting, which are two different things, by the way. I want to know about discussions being had as a producer. Are these discussions held at the creative level right off the bat in terms of this is what we're trying to do? Should anyone be able to play any role? Are we going too far? Can we have an Asian Evita on Broadway? I don't mean like touring productions, obviously. Are stories and characters, especially the more classic pieces, playing second fiddle now to conscious casting? And go.
Ben, you want to take the lead or no?
I mean, it's such a broad question.
It is.
It's hard. It's really case by case for me. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a difference I mean, I think of stunt casting as like, big celebrities with no talent going into
Chicago.
Sure, exactly.
You didn't love Huey Lewis as Billy Flynn? Anyway, go ahead.
But I don't think of. I mean, Elena Roger. I don't think it was a stunt to cast an Argentine.
Do you not think that? That's all the headline said, and then she gets up to sing, and it's like, okay,
but
she wasn't amazing.
Going to Elena Roger because I actually like her, and I think
I liked her in that.
Better in the role.
I liked her in that. Yeah.
She was great in the role in London, and then by the time she got to Broadway, she was in a worse place vocally. But fuck all those people because they put Sutton Foster in Anything Goes, and then they love Patty when Elena Rogers in Evita.
I know.
You don't get to pick and choose. And also, and I was glad it was Elena Rogers. She sings like La Lupe. She's got that like.
I liked her. I mean, I have to say though, I did not like that production. I'm sorry.
No,
but I liked her. And Ricky Martin. Ricky Martin's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
So Ricky Martin, that was stunt casting, and he was terrible.
But it's ridiculous.
And the money kept rolling in.
Play is conceived of, it's so important, and I don't mean that pretentiously. You just don't throw that to Ricky Martin. By the way, I love Ricky's music. He's just not an actor. It's not okay.
No,
he's a good actor. Did you see Versace?
I guess he's okay.
He was so good, but as a singer on Broadway, no.
Richard J. Alexander said that he was good as Marius when he put him in Les Mis in the 90s.
I never saw it. So.
Terrible in Evita.
But guess what? Anybody can phone in Marius. I hate to break it to you.
That is true. It's one of those boring. Cosette and Marius are so boring.
He was so offensive in Evita. But look, you talk about nobody ever taught Michael Bennett staging or Hal Prince's staging, but there's a difference between direction and staging.
Yes.
If you don't have Michael Bennett backstage doing coke and fucking everybody and creating love triangles and messing with their brains, that's not Michael Bennett staging. Just because some third assistant stage manager takes it on the road and knows where to tell them to stand, and then goes over to them and says, oh no, you have to do, you have to put your hand on your hip here when you say this line, because that's what Donna McKechnie did. Well, Michael Bennett wouldn't have done that if he were alive. He would have them, find something that was interesting and authentic to them. So I think that, I would rather see a new, maybe less than Hal Prince, but still new and interesting and different version of the show than a recycle.
By the way, let me say something. Ben, I love your passion on this. I love to get you worked up.
But
that's one of my favorite. Fundamentally, no, I love it. Fundamentally, this is like being a political pundit on Broadway. Fundamentally, art is subjective. I'm just telling you, as if I had been the critic, I would have been. I loved Elena, and there were certain things about it. I'm a huge fan of Rob Ashford's. I've worked with him. I just didn't love. I don't love Michael Grandage's direction of musicals. His Guys and Dolls was diabolical. He's a brilliant director, and I don't think he knows how to direct musicals. Not that I've seen. So, and that doesn't mean he'll never will. It's a case of a lot of British directors, not all. I lived in England. I know this for a fact. So I just was like, part of what. Remember too, a lot of musicals, at least as I grow older, speak for myself. You develop a different attraction to them, and you realize that sometimes,
very true, especially
sometimes a good director or a great showman, papers over the flaws of a show that you remember loving, and then when you see it without, let's say, Tommy Tune staging, you realize maybe it isn't as that great. You know what I mean? So Evita to me is a wonderful show. It's probably their best score. Do I think it's as perfect a show as I once thought it is? Maybe not.
It's better to listen to, which is why it was a concept album.
That doesn't mean I don't love it, though. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know that it holds up. When I've never seen King and I, where I've been like, it's not a great show. Or have you ever seen Gypsy, where you've been like, Fiddler, it doesn't work. No, they always work.
I watch Gypsy every night of the week.
Me too.
I would see it in a high school.
It could be in 8th grade. So let's shift then to kind of like the very conscious casting, such as, and having an Asian Evita, or like if we had like a black My Fair Lady, the actual like historical whatever is like somebody like that would never be invited to the grand ball. But are we on theater just thinking about the richness that somebody has to offer? Can we go too far?
It depends on the production.
Right.
I think that, the director has to create a reality for the stage. It's not real life anyway. You're watching something with no fourth wall.
But some of it's historical.
Yeah, but you know what? Sometimes you go see something like that and it just works, and sometimes you go and you see it and it doesn't. And I don't think that is necessarily a bar none rule about, you can't do 1800s England with an African American, but you can do, I don't think that there's any like cut and dry sort of policy that will fit all worlds.
I'd venture to say, though, if you were a reviewer or something, and you would say, hey, this racially progressive casting did not work, I don't think anybody would say that. Because you'd be.
You're right.
That's the pendulum
attacked.
swinging right
That's
now.
what I'm saying.
I think that
Creating a space.
my view is, all of our expectations as artists and producer are being upended right now. We're going through a huge change. So there's
That's
always
definitely true.
Yeah, there's the shock value aspect of, wow, I've never seen that before, or whatever. But you have to step back and think, right? And this is what I was saying about, and this is, I'm not trying to be overly PC. People who've been underrepresented for years and grew up loving the theater never see themselves up there. It's like, I know people when they mix, and I'm not a Marvel movie fan, but I'm a huge cinephile. When they move they do like a movie to be more diverse and everybody gets mad about a character. And I'm like, okay, but if you're growing up as a young black kid, you finally see yourself, or a trans kid, you see yourself as a trans superhero or something. You know what I mean? And I think as long as it serves the story, and I have to say, it's still case by case. I'm fine with it. I think the only time I have a problem with it is when I think it's overtly, like the story doesn't matter and you're just trying to virtue signal. Now, I don't necessarily can't point to an example and wouldn't. I'm just saying I think there's a lot of cases where why shouldn't we see a more diverse representation of the show? It doesn't bother. I mean, what's that historical that takes you out of it? I'd have to think of something off the top of my head that you'd be like, I can't see that.
And what are we protecting? What's the worst that happens? Somebody does a production like that and it doesn't work, so they fail.
Right.
Just like they could fail for a million reasons. That's on them.
But it's funny.
That was that.
Right, because you're saying art is its own ethereal thing. Like it may work in spite of everybody's preconceived notions.
Yeah,
well, it's funny because we're talking about different casting. Gender swapping casting in Hollywood has not worked. Every type, like if it's been a male movie, every female, like Ghostbusters, Ocean's 11.
Honestly, I think
it just has not worked.
Ghostbusters didn't work because the original is brilliant,
and
the second one wasn't funny. I didn't think. How about that? Women are funny. I just think it was as funny. Like, I don't think it's because they were women. First of all, reboots in Hollywood's a whole different thing. I mean, they make everything through a sausage factory with 17 cooks and everything's shit. I mean, you don't have like Roman Polanski. I know he's like not okay to say, but like, no, but let me use a better person, William Wyler, or a great director, Billy Wilder, who had a vision. You have now I'm sorry, I'm currently working at the system as we have 17 redrafts and rewrites, and you bring in a story about Ben Rimalower's glasses, and you come out with a story about space frogs on a moon or something, and like we don't really.
That's where I bought them.
Right. But you know what I mean? They changed the whole thing. So it's a different business. I think, look, we have a lot of work to do on diversity in America. That's my overall philosophy, and we could break that down. It's a complicated story.
Okay, we have time for one more quick discussion. We can either talk about Sondheim versus Weber or musicals based on movies.
Ben, what do you think?
Oh, God.
It's like a Fox News question.
Yep.
Can we flip a coin?
This is the kind of questions they give me on Fox News. Adam Epstein, do you think AOC should have taken an SUV if she supports the Green Deal? It's like, yeah. Yeah, maybe it's hypocritical, but the Green Deal's still good. They'd be like, you know what I mean? They want me to be like, there's no Green Deal, but should an SUV, Anyway,
okay, pick one. Kurt has to go home.
All right.
Andrew Lloyd Webber versus Stephen Sondheim.
All right, let's do
Okay,
it.
we consider Stephen Sondheim. Actually, can we make this a hot topic, Kurt?
Hot topic.
So we can clip this.
Remember Hot Pockets? Hot topic.
I was
Is that what? Okay,
college.
sorry.
It was.
It's time for Hot Topics on the Rocks with Alexander. Better pour yourself a nut.
This is hot. That's hot. That's hot. This is really hot.
So hot, you guys. Okay, that was our intro to Hot Topics, of course, with Miss Paris Hilton, who will be in Chicago, I'm sure. We consider here's the hot topic. We consider Stephen Sondheim a musical genius. No mega musical hits. I guess I would consider Into the Woods his biggest commercial hit. We use that term.
Yeah.
I use that term.
I don't think that's true, though. Not in terms of making money.
In terms of like every high school does it, every college does it, everybody does it. Like if you were to ask a lay person on the street, have you seen Into the Woods?
You're right. They don't know.
Then we look at the success of Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, big, bombastic. There's the assumption that Webber stuff it's fluff and it's not that great music, but the shows sell out and run for years. but Sondheim is substance. What say you? Are more thoughtful musicals like Sondheim a thing of the past or not lucrative at this point?
Well, it's a lot layered in there. I mean, first of all,
that's how we do it. We're like, we give you so much.
I mean, it's like, to Ben's, it's a very broad question.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
It's like in academia, you'd be like, this is like a 30-page thesis on one point of the. My bottom line is
this is a happy hour response.
Let me say this: there is room for Sondheim and there is room for Weber, and I feel that way. The one thing I will say.
That wasn't the question.
Hold on. Weber is not fluff. He writes indelible melodies. Tell me that you don't hum. I do. All I ask of you, everything. Now, I will say this. Is Sondheim probably the most important lyricist composer in the theater in the last 50, 60 years or whatever? Yeah, I think so. My only thing I would add, I think they both have shows that are flawed. And the only difference is, which I'm not on this team, is people feel that even when Sondheim does a turkey, unless it's like, obviously, like nobody like Roadshow, but they're unwilling to criticize, for example, The Book of Follies, which is flawed. I do. You know what I mean?
Who's unwilling to criticize The Book of Follies?
There is a hardcore Sondheim, I'd say, critical establishment of fans, which basically, if it's Sondheim, because of his brilliance, and it is,
that's exactly
he
right.
kind of gets a pass, even though I'd say there are many instances, not all, because I'm still a Sondheim fan, where shows are fucking boring and chilly and icy as shit. And sometimes you just want to hear a song. It's okay in the theater. You want to surrender. Going to the theater and dealing, I'm just being on the Weber side for a second, which I'm not. I'm just illustrating. I'm taking the position.
Yeah.
You just want to like sit back. You don't want to necessarily have to be intellectually engaging, because you know what? Sometimes that's to a fault, and that sometimes creates a coldness in Sondheim's work. By the same token, sometimes the Weber shows are so bombastic and over the top and ridiculous.
Love Never Dies.
That you yearn, awful. That you yearn for aspects of love too. I agree.
That's one of my favorite.
I like the score, but I'm just saying is you do yearn for those brilliant moments in Sunday in the Park with George, where a white canvas possibility. I mean, it just moves me.
Move On is one of
Move On. Sunday is my favorite of his shows, but I'm a Company, Little Night, Sweeney person, and you realize the brilliance of those. But I do understand people who claim he's too arid and they can feel detached, because I do think that creeps into his work as much as maybe a kind of willful cheesiness creeps into Weber. It's just a question of what you'd like. But I like both. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tricky. I think that, first of all, I think your question got it backwards, Alexander. I think the reality is that the whole generation of kids was influenced that are writing musicals today, whether it's, one of the things that I think makes Hamilton great is that Lin-Manuel would cite both Sondheim and Lloyd
Yes.
Webber.
I think Sondheim is inspired.
My
more-
original debate when I was in college, Ben, this was the debate, and I used to be like, and I'm just saying there's no debate. You can love Into the Woods. I don't like Passion, for example. You love Into the Woods and
I love
Sondheim.
Passion to listen to.
Okay, well, there you go. You can love it, and you can also be like, I'm the guy that like, I'm like, really? You don't like the score to Jesus Christ? There's people like, I don't like Jesus Christ Superstar. I'm like,
Fuck them.
by the way,
I mean, Sondheim won. Unfortunately, I see a lot of Sondheim juniors writing musicals today. I don't see a single Andrew Lloyd Webber the second.
So that's a great point of view.
Right. Well, it's harder, by the way.
But we have Phantom of the Opera playing for how many years?
33.
Sweeney Todd's not playing. Little Night Music's not playing.
But let me say this, in any aspect, what Sondheim does is so unique and so poetic and so different. However, pop musicians will tell you this, and anyone that has had like the hits, it is infinitely harder to write the simple, what you think is the deceptively simple, hummable melody. It is. So I also argue, Ben, that there is a generation, I'm not naming people, of imitators, pastichers, emulators. You know what? They can't write. They can't write All I Ask of You.
No, I agree. But I wish they would try harder to write Andrew Lloyd Webber songs.
Me too.
I see a lot of second-rate Sondheim all the time. And some good second generation.
And that's the problem. They don't have the brilliance of Sondheim to do it in the way he does. And I still argue he has plenty of melodies, even though people say he doesn't. But they can't do the sweeping, grandeur of Weber. So they're kind of in a nebulous area.
And they're never good unless they're doing a new thing. I mean, Sondheim didn't sound like Richard Rodgers or, Leonard Bernstein.
No.
It sounded like his own thing. And Andrew Lloyd Webber didn't sound like them either.
No.
And so if you're, I think that's the problem with a lot of the like American musicals of the 80s. I mean, no tea, no shade to like Maltby and Shire, but it was like a little bit
It's
like
a little precious.
Sondheim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, this has been such a fun conversation. And this
I'm
is
exhausted.
No, but this
Ben, am I going to see you? I'm coming to New York in July. I have to see you.
Please.
I'll be there.
You guys, but honestly, thank you for this conversation,
Thank
for bringing
you.
your opinions.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. You guys, tell our audience where you want them to find you.
So follow me at Instagram at AK Epstein, Epstein, and then at Twitter, which unfortunately is a different handle, but whatever.
I couldn't find you at first.
I
I'm like,
know
oh,
it
there's
should be the
his
same
Twitter.
because I was on Twitter long before. At Adam Epstein Prod, like short for productions. Follow me there. I am not always public on Facebook. Sometimes I don't have like a page, but if you add me and I think you're, addable, I'll add you.
And also, please watch his series on playhouselive.org. You can sign up. Sign up for this class, and it's gonna open your eyes about a lot of what you know about musicals, what you don't know about musicals, that you thought you knew about musicals. And it's actually going to give you an appreciation. And we have the time now that we're still at home, until things go back to normal. It's a great time to rediscover some of those albums. It's a great time to rediscover your love for musical theater. And thank you for Pasadena Playhouse for always being progressive and keeping musical theater alive during COVID. Mr. Ben Rimalower, where can people find you and love you?
I'm in Brooklyn. If they just come by, I'll
He'll buzz you in.
I'll buzz you in. The buzzer's broken. They have to text. But I'm Ben Rimalower at all the socials. BenRimalower. And I also just want to say, because I don't think I made it clear, that I didn't go and bully Fifi O'Hara. I looked at my own desire to do that, and I thought better of it. I just want to be clear about
Girl,
that.
you wouldn't bully like a housefly. You're good. You're good. And I love that we have these animated conversations.
This was so much fun. I think we should have a rematch.
I'm happy to come. Please have me back. I'll be here.
I think we should do a bonus episode. You guys, I have 2 more pages of hot topics.
Let's do a follow-up episode. Have me. That'd be good.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's have to do that because we start to talk about Patty a little bit more. But I have a lot of other themes that are affecting Broadway and the future of Broadway too.
Let's do that.
That we should have these open conversations. On that note, I feel like we could have a whole even tonight. Okay. Well, that's all, folks. Thank you, Ben. And I'm going to come see you soon. And you have to come to the West Coast. Adam's going to take us to wineries. Even though you don't drink, we need a designated driver.
I'll take you. I'm a local in Solvang now. So,
and I've never.
But it's a very exclusive invitation. Okay, you have to apply for admission. And anyway, bullshit. All right.
We'll go. Like I said, you can drive a golf cart. Well, that's all, folks. It's always a grab bag of fun every week on the Rocks. Big thank you to our fabulous guest, my engineer Kurt, our studio producer Michael Vega, our intern Alexis Mendez, and above all, you, our fabulous audience. Coming up, we welcome History Channel's Nicholas Brown, an Egyptologist, by the way. He's the new hottie on the History Channel, and he's coming to talk all about mummies. And you know I'm a mummies boy, so get it? We also have one of the world's most notorious counterfeiters, Arthur J. Williams Jr., who spent 30 years in jail, learned art, and is now one of the most sought-after artists on the West Coast is coming in. We also have LA Rams Quentin Perron, the first openly black gay man to serve as a cheerleader on the LA Rams. So stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week.
This has been another episode of On the Rocks. Tweet me and slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.